You're watching the long form story. Big news stories that often go unreported. A new style of storytelling which shreds the superficiality. It shreds the monotony of everyday news that you watch. These are real stories, real ground reports. And the feedback that we've been getting, the response that we've been getting will keep this show going for long. I'm Sucharita Kukreti and I get you 4 stories tonight. 4 stories that will make you think, make you question, and will carry the resonance long after the show is over. Story number 1 that I bring to you tonight. The Avengers of Kuihuru, where 8 women hack their rapists to death. Story number 2, Israel versus Iran. Allies then, enemies now. Story number 3, a vehicle of controversy. Politics, police, and a young couple. And story number 4, this street is my street. My way or the highway? Tonight we bring you a chilling story of vigilant revenge. A tale that has shaken Orissa to its core and is bound to stir something in every one of you watching. It raises a haunting question. What happens when years of helplessness and unending oppression finally explode into a rage? This is not just a story of crime. It is a mirror to justice, conscience, and the cracks in our system.
These are the Mahendragiri Hills, the ancient sentinel of Odisha's eastern coastline. The Mula Nivasis of Mahendragiri, the Adivasis. Who live in the few and far out scattered villages here in the Mohana subdivision of Gajapati district. Believe that the Lord Vishnu's avatar Parashuram retired here. They say he will emerge from the Mahendragiris at the end of the Kali Yuga to aid the Kalki avatar. They say he still roams with his killer axe in these mysterious hills. That one day he will reappear with his axe to avenge all oppression and injustice. Here in Kuihuru, an incredibly small hamlet of Mohana, home to just 15 households, an axe had sprung out on a silent night this June to avenge a heinous offense that had continued to oppress for years. No electricity, no school, no hospital, not even a police station within a radius of 10 kilometers. The women of Kuihuru could only lean on each other through hell and high water. This June, 8 of them decided to pick up the axe and avenge a powerful oppressor who had made their life a long living hell. This Kambi Malik, this man, raped, assaulted, threatened and muzzled the women of Kuihuru for years. On a dark silent night, it took just one of them to swipe a sharp axe at him as he slept on the veranda of his hut. On June 2nd, around 10 p.m., Kambi Malik found his prey again. Lakshmi was sleeping. Her son and daughter-in-law had gone out. He forced himself in, overpowered her, and then raped her and left.
ମୁଁ ଘରେ ଜଣେ ଶୋଇଥିଲେ ଆଜ୍ଞା ମୋ ପୁଅ ବୋଉ ନଥିଲେ ଗାଁରେ ହେଲେ ପଡ଼ୋଶା ଘରେ ହେଲେ କିଏ ନଥିଲେ ମୋତେ ସିଏ ଆଇକି କବାଟ ଆଣିକି ରେପ୍ କରିବାକୁ ହେଉଥିଲା ରେପ୍ କରିଛି ମୁଁ ନାଇକି ମଲା ଭଳିଆ ହେଇକି ରହିଲି ସେ ଯାଇକି ଶୋଇଥିଲା ମୋର ଆଗରେ ଯାଇକି ତାକୁ ଇଏ କରିଦେଲି ଆଉ ଏତେ ମା ମନ କେମିତି କରିଛି ଗାତିରେ ଆଜ୍ଞା।
More than 2 weeks later, when she spoke to the reporters this Thursday, she was still in a daze. The terror of the night of her rape and her revenge still raw in her mind.
ଗାତି ଗୁଆଡ଼େ ଡରିକି ପୁଡ଼େଇଲେ ନା କୁଆଡ଼େ ଫିଙ୍ଗିଲୁ ନା ଡର ଲାଗିଲା ଆଉ ଖାଲି ଝିଅ ପିଲାମାନେ।
Lakshmi ran out in the dark night to share her ordeal with other women in the village. Many of them had been Kambi's victims. The women gathered around Lakshmi and followed her as they looked for Kambi. Enough was enough. They wanted revenge now.
କେତେବେଳେ ତାକୁ ମାରଲ କିଏ ସେ କେମିତି କଣ?
କେତେବେଳେ କହିଲେ 10ଟା ନା 10ଟା
ରାତିରେ ନା ଦିନରେ?
ରାତିରେ କାଇ।
Lakshmi found Kambi sleeping on the veranda of his hut. With the axe she was carrying in her hand, she struck him. And then again and again as the other 7 women joined with their sickles. Blow after blow rained until their oppressor, their rapist, was dead.
କୋଉଠି ଥିଲା ସେ?
ଦାଣ୍ଡରେ ଶୋଇଥିଲା।
ତମ ଘରକୁ ଆଇଥିଲା?
ଆମ ଘରକୁ ଯାଇକି ତାଙ୍କ ଘରେ ଶୋଇଥିଲା।
Lakshmi and her 7 allies were not done. Together, they dragged his lifeless body into the forest near the village river. Then, beneath a mango tree, in pitch darkness, they set him ablaze.
ଆପଣ କେମିତି ନେଲ କୁଆଡ଼େ ନେଲ ତାକୁ?
ନେଲୁ ବେଶୀ ଦୂର ଆକା ନେଇଛୁ ସେମିତି ଟିକେ ଓହ୍ଲେଇବାକୁ ସେମିତି କଲ ସେଠି ପୁରା ସେଠି
Kambi's body was found by his daughter. Sundari had searched heaven and earth for 3 days till she found her father's charred body on the 5th of June.
ସେମିତି ଖୋଜେଇଲୁ ବେଲେ ବ୍ଲଡ଼ ଦେଖିକି ଆମେ ତୁନିକି ରହିଲୁ ଆଜ୍ଞା ଆଉ କ'ଣ କରିବୁ ଇଆଡ଼େ ସିଆଡ଼େ ତୁନିକି ରହିବାକି କହିକି ଇଆଡ଼େ ସିଆଡ଼େ ଖୋଜାଖୋଜି କଲୁ ଆଜ୍ଞା କୁଆଡ଼େ ବି ମିଳିଲାନି ବାପା। ତାପରେ ଛୋଟ ଛୋଟ କୁନି ପିଲାମାନେ ଏଡ଼ିକି ହେବେ ତାଙ୍କେ ମଝିଆରୀ ଯାକ ହେବେ ତାଙ୍କେ କହିଲେ ଆଉ ମାଉସୀ ମାଆଙ୍କେ କହିଲେ ନଦୀ ଆଡ଼େ ଯାଅନି ଆଉ ତୋ ମାଉସୀର ବାପାକୁ ହାଣିକି ଫିଙ୍ଗିଛନ୍ତି ନା ପୁଡ଼େଇଛନ୍ତି ସିଆଡ଼େ ଯାଅନି ନହେଲେ ଡରେଇବ ଏମିତି କହିଛନ୍ତି ପିଲାମାନଙ୍କୁ ହେଲେ ପିଲାମାନେ ଆମକୁ କହିଲେ ଆଜ୍ଞା ସେମିତି ହେଇକି ଆମେ ଖୋଜାଖୋଜି କଲୁ ଯେ ନଦୀ ଆଡ଼େ କହିବାକୁ ଆମେ ଏଠି ଦେଖିବାକୁ ଆଜ୍ଞା ଏଠି ସତରେ ଏଠି ନିଆଁ ମାନେ ଏଠି ପାଉଛ ଦେଖିଲୁ ଆମେ ଖାଲି ଏ ମୁଣ୍ଡ ପୋଡ଼ି ନଥିଲା ସେଠି ନିଆଁ ଥିଲା ସବୁଆଡ଼େ ନିଆଁ ମରିଥିଲା ଖାଲି ଇଏ ମୁଣ୍ଡରେ ଆକା ନିଆଁ ଲାଗୁଥିଲା ସେତିକି ଆଜ୍ଞା ତାପରେ ଖୋଜାଖୋଜି କଲୁ ତୁନିକି ଥିଲେ ଆଣିକି କିରାସିନ ପକେଇଥିବେ ନା ଆଜ୍ଞା କାଠ ବି ବଡ଼ ନାହିଁ ଆପଣ ତ ଦେଖିପାରୁଛନ୍ତି ଏବେ କାଠ ବି ଅଛି ଅଧା ହେଲେ କାଠ ବି ବଡ଼ ନାହିଁ କିଛି ନାହିଁ ସେଇଟା ପାଇଁ ଆମେ ଜାଣିପାରିଲୁ କଞ୍ଚା କାଠ ଆଣିଛନ୍ତି ମାନେ କିରାସିନ ପକେଇଥିବେ ଆକା ପକେଇଛନ୍ତି କିରାସିନ ଦାଣ୍ଡରେ ବି ପକେଇଥିଲେ ସେ ରକ୍ତ ଉପରେ ରକ୍ତ ଇଏ ହେଇଯାଉ କହିକି ଲିଭିଯାଉ କହିକି ରକ୍ତ ଉପରେ ବି କିରାସିନ ପକେଇଥିଲା ସେଟା ବି ଜଣେ ସାଇକେଲରେ ଆସିଲା ପୁଣି ତାପରେ ଆମ ଗାଁର ନେମ୍ବର ଆଣି ସିଏ ବି ସାଥିରେ ଆସିକି ପୁଣି ପକେଇଲା ସେଟା ବି ପିଲାମାନେ ଏକା କହିଲେ ଆମେ ଆମ ବାପାକୁ ଖୋଜିବାକୁ ଯାଇଥିଲୁ।
Police say Sundari and some relatives of Kambi had travelled 15 to 20 kilometers to the Mohana police station on June 7th to lodge a complaint. Immediately, a team had set off to Kuihuru. Nobody had made any attempt to clean up the murder evidence, even after 5 days of the incident.
तो कल आम मोहना थाना को गोटे खबर आसाला जे गोटे लोक को मारिक पोड़ी देसन बोलिकी से घटन आमर आईएससी और स्टाफ संगे संगे घटनास्थल को जाइए सेटा आमर कुईहुरु गाँ जोटा कि आमर पाखापाखि 15-20 किलोमीटर हम मोहना थाना से घटनास्थल को जाइए देखले जे गोटे लोक को मारिक पोड़ी दिखाई तार खपुरी और पाउंस थिला सेठी से लोकर जे झील अच्छी कंप्लेनेंट सुंदरी मल्लिका जी की रिपोर्ट देते जे ताकर बापा को गत 2/6/2025 एक दिन से गाँव किसी स्त्री लोक मैंने संघबद्ध होकर मारिक पोड़ी देइछंती सेठी तापर सेठू रिपोर्ट पाइला परे आमे सेठी अनुसंधान आमर स्टार्ट हेतिला साइंटिफिक टीम सेठी यूटिलाइज हेतिला घटनास्थल आमे से जो लोक तार ना हूँ काम्बी मल्लिक बयस पाखापाखि 60 वर्ष तार खपुरी तार हाड़ आ पाउंस जबत करूँ स्पट ब्लड स्टेन भी सीज करूँ आउ घटनार अनुसंधान जना पड़ा जे से गाँव पाखापाखि 8 जन महिला ये केस संश्लिष्ट अच्छा जो माने कि गत 2-6-25 दिन राति से काम्बी मल्लिक को काती और टांगिया हाणिकी मारी देइछंती और पोड़ी देइछंती। घटनार अनुसंधान जना पड़ी जे ये जो काम्बी मल्लिक से गाँवर केतेक स्त्री लोक असदाचरण करथिला सेतिरे अतिष्ठ होइकरी से माने गत 2-6-25 राति से माने ताको मारिकरी पेट्रोल ढालिकरी पोड़ी देइछंती।
Kambi's daughter says that she had heard through the village grapevine that her father was a sexual predator, but blames it on her mother's death 4 years back. She has no sympathies for the women who killed her father.
एतिके आम बापार भूल थिला कि आज्ञा जोटा एबे आमे कहथिला आम माया को संगे टिके संपर्क रखिबार आम मम्मी जिंती मरिला सेटिरु टिके हाफ माइंड हे गला सेटु टिके तांकर माइंड रे भलो चललानी आ तांको को किंती माइंड किंती चलला सिंती हैला सेटिरु 2 थरा सिंती हैला काली पिला मन को हमको कहले आगे आमे कोन जानिबो कि ना बापा को देखिछु सिंती धरा धरी कला बेले सेटा बे हमको काली मामा के कहले हमको काली कहले बापा को केबे इंती मीटिंग बसै कि बुझै नाते कि किछि करनाते एटी एबे ये हट्टा हाथ रे जीवन नै देले हम एबे कोन चाहबो आगे जे हम बापा को मारी छंती ताको दंड दिया जावा।
For the 8 women of Kuihuru, Kambi was a self-styled sorcerer and witch doctor, and their only healer in miles. The nearest hospital is 20 kilometers away. He preyed on their fear and raped them constantly for years, threatening to visit his sorcery and evil on their family. But what was their greatest handicap that forced them into silence for years? The fact that the hand of law did not reach the village. The fact that they had no hospital to go to and were near sex slaves for their only so-called evil healer, Kambi.
The women sit silently outside the Mohana police station now, their faces grim, but they say they had enough.
कौन करथिला से सब अरे
गाँव रे समस्त के जार तार देखो समस्त रांडे डिंडा जी मन हेले समस्त के जार तार गई ताक मार दबो से लोक मन माइक ना कर जीवो गुणिया को थिला काहिंते अभद्र काम करिया को थिला का
केते लोग सहित सब संपर्क रखिथिला से गाँव रे
देखले समस्त
Along with the women of Kuihuru, 2 men who helped them procure kerosene also wait for the law to decide which way the scale of justice will tilt.
Meanwhile, another young woman was gang raped at Odisha's famous Gopalpur beach this week. Fear and helplessness often vents itself through violence and vigilantism when delivery of justice is tardy. Tonight, we take you to a war zone born not just out of hate, but of history. Because before the missiles and before the assassinations, Iran and Israel were allies, quiet partners bound by fear, strategy, and survival. And now, missiles are in the air, nuclear sites are in ruins, and 2 sworn enemies are now locked in direct confrontation. This is not just about Israel or Iran. This is about the future of the Middle East and the balance of power in the world. Take a look at this report.
The skies above the Middle East are burning. city is in lockdown. Missiles in flight. Hypersonic weapons tear through airspace, and beneath the surface, nuclear facilities smolder. This is not a proxy war. This is not a Cold War. This is direct. This is personal. Israel, Iran, one-on-one, and no one is backing down. In the heart of the Middle East, two nations bound by ancient histories but divided by modern ambitions have clashed for decades. Iran and Israel, once unlikely allies, now sworn enemies.
Before 1979 revolution, before the establishment of the Islamic regime in Tehran, Iran and Israel had excellent bilateral relationship. And Iran happened to be one of the first few Muslim majority country which gave recognition to the newly created state of Jews after modern Turkish Republic. Israel and Iran came very close being the Western ally. Even though Israel was not formally part of the CENTO, but Israel always had an excellent military and strategic relationship with Iran.
Under the Pahlavi dynasty, Iran recognized Israel in 1948, becoming the second Muslim majority nation to do so. In those early years, shared fears of Arab nationalism and Soviet influence forged a quiet alliance. In 1956, Suez War cemented that bond. Mossad, the intelligence agency of Israel, and Savak, the intelligence agency of Iran, worked covertly to bolster Kurdish rebels against Iran's Sunni regime. In 1973, as the Arab world launched an oil embargo against the West for backing Israel, Iran stepped in, fueling Europe and America. In 1977, the alliance peaked with Project Flower, a joint missile program. But in 1979, the Islamic Revolution changed everything. Ayatollah Khomeini's rise turned Iran into an Islamic republic. Israel became the enemy, and Palestine became Iran's cause.
Post-revolution Iran, the entire policy changed primarily because of the ideological dimension of the revolution. Because the Iranian Islamic Revolution was essentially, fundamentally aimed at the Western imperialism, Western cultural influence. Creation of Israel was considered by the Ayatollahs or the Islamic leadership in Iran as something un-Islamic, and because it was against the interests of the Muslim, because this particular state was created in what they call the Islamic space.
Decades later, the enmity now defines the Middle East. One narrow and coastal, the other sprawling and mountainous. One guarded by the Iron Dome, the other bristling with proxies and missiles. The conflict simmered for decades, then exploded in a chain of events that brought the region to the brink. In 2020 came the big breakout in the chain of events. A US drone backed by Israeli intelligence killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, head of the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the feared paramilitary force of Iran, and the key aide of Ayatollah Khamenei. The gloves were off. On October 7th, thousands of Iran-backed Hamas terrorists stormed through the Israel's border with the Gaza Strip, killing 1,200 people. At least 240 people were abducted as hostages into Gaza. This attack was conceived as revenge against the killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. The horrific terror attack was immediately justified as revenge of Soleimani assassination by Iran. This was not just provocation extraordinary, it was a challenge to Israel's existence. If Hamas succeeded, Israel failed.
Israel is at war. We didn't want this war. It was forced upon us in the most brutal and savage way. But though Israel didn't start this war, Israel will finish it. We will exact a price that will be remembered by them and Israel's other enemies for decades to come.
Israel responded with a devastating military campaign in the Gaza Strip called Operation Iron Swords. The counter-offensive aimed at rooting out Hamas in its entirety, whatever the cost, whatever the time it took. Since then, the Gaza war has claimed over 40,000 lives, including 18,000 children as per Hamas, even as over 100 Israeli hostages continue to remain in captivity of Hamas. And almost the entire leadership of Hamas eliminated. This is how the political chief Yahya Sinwar was taken down. And Israel assassinated Ismail Haniyeh inside Iran. From Soleimani to Haniyeh, and the second proxy of Iran in Lebanon, Hezbollah, whose chief Hassan Nasrallah was also killed by Israel in September last year. Israel left Iran looking defanged and disarmed. Only till June 12th, that is, on 12th June, the UN nuclear watchdog IAEA formally found that Iran wasn't complying with its nuclear obligation for the first time in 20 years, that Iran was enriching weapons-grade uranium, and that it was doing so at a breakneck pace. On the very next day, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion against Iran, a full-scale air campaign targeting Iran's nuclear site, Natanz, Isfahan, Mashhad. Iran's nuclear sites, radar installations, and missile silos were all bombed in quick succession.
پشت سر من تصویر محل اصابت موشک‌های دشمنان هستند به سایت هسته شهید احمدی روشن مجتمع غنیسازی سایت نتنز. با توجه به اینکه ما ساعت حدوداً 4:15 بود که صدای انفجار رو شنیدیم حرکت کردیم به سمت مسیر در واقع سایت هست.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons.
Iran has claimed that in the last 1 week, over Iran's 120 surface-to-surface missile launchers were destroyed. From western Iran to the skies above Tehran, the IDF has declared air supremacy over Iran.
Over the past few months, intelligence has shown that Iran is closer than ever to obtaining a nuclear weapon. This morning, the IDF began preemptive and precise strikes targeting the Iranian nuclear program in order to prevent the Iranian regime's ability to build a nuclear bomb in the immediate time frame.
The damage is undeniable.
This is the hole that made just one ballistic missile that was fired from Iran towards a residential area in the center of Israel. Meters from here there are kindergarten, schools, a lot of buildings with innocent people living there, and you can see the impact. One blast of a ballistic missile destroys anything with the shock wave in a radius of around 500 meters, and Iran continued to bombard Israel with hundreds of those kind of missiles.
The US Embassy in Tel Aviv is hit. Global diplomats scramble.
You can see behind me the American Embassy in Tel Aviv, and this is not damaged from the outside, at least from the shock wave of the ballistic missile that was fired from Iran, but still all the places next to the embassy suffering from a damage. Here usually people are doing the passport photos for the passport, leaving their stuff in those safes.
This isn't just Iran versus Israel. It's a battlefield of alliances as global powers weigh in.
Sometimes they have to fight it out, but we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
American president has been quiet and secretive and vague about what is called end game in this war.
We're not looking for a ceasefire. I didn't say I was looking for a ceasefire. That was Emmanuel, nice guy, but he doesn't get it right too often. But we're not looking. We're looking for better than a ceasefire.
There are series of threats and counter-threats being made by the world leaders as well as the actors directly involved.
Great people, they know how to protect themselves. And when you say better, what? Oh, we'll come down so hard if they do anything to our people. We'll come down so hard, then the gloves are off so beautifully. Now, I think they know not to touch our troops.
Khamenei in return is also openly threatening US against any military intervention. In a dramatic turn of events, President Trump said that his patience has run out. Meanwhile, Ayatollah Khamenei has declared that the country will never surrender. However, Iranian ambassadors are hoping for the West to intervene and de-escalate.
Please accept our assurances that the Iranian side, in the Iranian system, there is no desire, there is no any intention to produce the nuclear bomb.
Iranians have upped the ante with the use of hypersonic missiles on Israel. On 18 June, Iran escalated by launching Fatah missiles on Israel in what they called to be the beginning of the end of Israel's air defenses.
موشک‌های قدرتمند و مانورپذیر فتاح امشب با عبور از سپر دفاع موشکی پناهگاه بزدلان صهیونیست را بارها لرزاند و پیام اقتدار ایران را به همپیمان جنگ افروز تل‌آویو که در خیالات و توهمات پوچ است ارسال کرد.
Today, Iran launched another missile attack on Israel. Number of Iranian missiles were intercepted in several Israeli cities, including Jerusalem and Tel Aviv today. Reports claim that this ongoing week-long conflict has killed around 639 people in Iran and 24 in Israel. Tehran streets are choked with fleeing families. Israelis are taking shelter in bunkers and the world holds its breath. Iran and Israel, once strong allies, now bitter foes, mirror each other's fear and resolve. Can restraint prevail, or will this war redraw the map of the Middle East?
Now, this is the most underreported story of the week, and an unusual one as well. The arrest of the second most powerful police officer, the Additional Director General of Police in Tamil Nadu. But even more sensational, the charge under which he was arrested. That of being allegedly involved in the abduction of a 16-year-old boy in the district of Tiruvallur. Now, the ADGP was arrested, called for questioning, and even suspended pending inquiry by the state police, only to have the suspension overruled by a Supreme Court bench late last week. In election-bound and politically volatile Tamil Nadu, this case is huge political overtones amidst allegations of police overreach. For the long-form story, Sarda Natarajan and Anukriti Singh report.
His name is H.M. Jairam. He's about 57 years old, and with 1 year left to retire, the arrest of this Additional Director General of Police, seen here in uniform after being held by his own policemen, is the hottest controversy in Tamil Nadu this week. Charge against him, human trafficking, and being involved in the abduction of a 16-year-old boy whose 23-year-old elder brother Dhanush had eloped with and married this 21-year-old girl from another caste from a nearby village.
என்னோட பேர் வந்துட்டு விஜயாஸ்ரீ. நான் வந்துட்டு தேனியில் வந்துட்டு பிஎஸ்சி அக்ரிகல்ச்சர் படிச்சுட்டு இருந்தேன். எந்த காலேஜ்? கேட் காலேஜில். 4 இயர்ஸாக இவங்களை எனக்கு தெரியும். நான் 5 இயர்ஸ் லவ் பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தோம். 1 இயராக ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸாகவும் இருந்தோம். ஸோ வந்துட்டு வீட்டில் தெரிஞ்சிச்சு அப்படிங்கிறதுனால நான் கல்யாணம் பண்ணிக்கிட்டேன். இப்போ வந்துட்டு 3 தடவை ஸ்டேட்மெண்ட் கேட்டாங்க. வீட்டிலேருந்து வந்து ஸ்டேட்மெண்ட் கேட்டாங்க போலீஸ் ஸ்டேஷனில். 3 தடவை ஸ்டேட்மெண்ட்டும் எழுதி கொடுத்துட்டோம். அப்புறம் திரும்பி உங்கள் தம்பியை தூக்கிட்டு போயிட்டு கொஞ்சம் காம்ப்ரமைஸ் பேசணும்னு சொல்லிட்டு பிரச்சனை பண்ணாங்க. அது என்னன்னு தெரியல. அம்மா பதட்டத்தில் அந்த மாதிரி கால் பண்ணி இந்த மாதிரி போலீஸ்க்கு இன்ஃபார்ம் பண்ணோடனே அது கொஞ்சம் கேஸ் ஆயிடுச்சு. இப்போ வந்துட்டு சரி ஓகே அவங்க தான் தெரிஞ்சிருச்சு காம்ப்ரமைஸாக போகணும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு.
On June 7th, 7 weeks later, Lakshmi, the mother of the 2 boys, complained to the police that her younger son had gone missing. That's where the story takes a different spin. Because Lakshmi mentioned the number of the government vehicle used to abduct her son, TN06G0606. And that turned out to be the official vehicle of the additional DGP, H.M. Jairam. So how was a teenager abducted in the ADGP's car? quick investigation led quickly to this man, an influential local politician called Jagan Murthy, who runs his own Dalit party called the Purachi Bharatam Party, and who allegedly used a local advocate and an ex-cop as well as the ADGP's car to kidnap the teenager to teach his elder brother a lesson.
சட்டமன்றத்திலேயும் மக்கள் மன்றத்திலேயும் தொடர்ந்து அரசுக்கு எதிர்ப்பாக நான் பேசிட்டு வரேன். மக்களுடைய கோரிக்கைகளுக்காக தான் நான் பேசிட்டு வரேன். அதனால் அரசு காழ்ப்புணர்ச்சியோடு ஏதாவது ஒரு சான்ஸ் கிடைக்குமான்னு எதிர்பார்க்குறாங்க. சம்மந்தமே இல்லாமல் என்னை இதில் சிக்க வைக்க வேண்டும் என்று நினைத்தார்கள். ஆனால் அதற்கு உயர்நீதிமன்றம் ஒரு சில கருத்துக்களை சொல்லியிருக்கின்றது. ஆனால் என் மீது தவறாக சொன்ன கருத்துக்களை அந்த நீதிபதி இன்றைக்கு மாற்றப்பட்டு இருக்கிறார் என்பது உண்மை. மற்ற விஷயங்கள் நீதிமன்றத்தில் நான் சொல்லியிருக்கின்றேன். நீதிமன்றம் என்ன முடிவெடுக்கின்றதோ அதுதான். நாங்கள் சட்டத்துக்கு கட்டுப்பட்டவர்கள்.
தமிழக அரசு உங்கள் மீது இருந்த அந்த இது காரணமாக தான் இப்போ உங்கள் மீது அந்த வழக்கு பதிவு போடுறாங்க. நீங்கள் மக்களுக்காக தொடர்ந்து பேசுறது
வேற என்ன பிரச்சனை?
Things got hot and almost out of control. However, when on June 14th the police arrived to arrest Jagan Murthy, thousands of supporters were trying to block the cops. And by now, this intercaste family dispute had turned into a political feud. By now, pressure was beginning to show on the boys' family. They released a video on June 15th that they wanted to draw the case.
எங்கள் அப்பா தெரிஞ்ச முன்னாடி காம்ப்ரமைஸாக போகணும்னு சொல்லிட்டு நாங்கள் கேஸ் வாபஸ் வாங்கிட்டோம். அதுக்கப்புறம் யாரோ இந்த மாதிரி ஏடிஜிபியோட கார் வந்து சொன்னாங்க. அதுக்கப்புறம் ஜெகன்மூர்த்தி ஐயா பேர் சொன்னாங்க. அது வந்து எங்களுக்கு என்னன்னே புரியல. ஏன் அவங்களாம் இதுக்குள்ளே இன்வால்வ் ஆனாங்க, எதனால் அவங்க பேர்லாம் வருது, எங்களோட கேஸ்னால ஏன் அவங்க பேர்லாம் வருதுன்னு சொல்லிட்டு எங்களுக்கு சுத்தமாக இது வரைக்கும் புரியவே இல்லை.
But it was too late. The powerful policeman seen here during his questioning was arrested the next day, June 16th, with the High Court demanding his custodial interrogation. The AIA-DMK, fighting to defeat the DMK, says it is a case of political overreach.
Law and order is in clear shambles with respect to this DMK. Once they come to power, police force are being made in puppets. Any veracity of crime, there has to be a clear scope of investigation definition. But whereas the DMK is concerned, they fix the culprit in advance and their entire mechanism works towards to punishing him, leaving alone the person who are the masters behind the crime. The classic example, as you stated, is that Arakonam, this Anna University, they determine who the culprit is. Then they go about collecting evidences on the same. Classic example, another example why police force puppets in the hands is today. We came at 10 o'clock to give the complaint to the commissioner. He refused to meet us. It went to JS, then went to DC, then finally we met the ADC and we are out after 2.5 hours. So this is the plight of the law and order and the police force in Tamil Nadu. They only work on the direction of their masters who are DMK.
The DMK is determined to go after the ADGP, who managed to get reinstated after a Supreme Court intervention.
See, so far as this case is concerned, and so far as my role as a lawyer of Mr. H.M. Jairam, the current ADGP of Tamil Nadu, he was called to the court on the oral directions of the court. There was no notice to him. And prior to this, he was not even an accused in any of the cases. And it's very bizarre that in a case where a police officer comes to the court on the oral directions of the court to assist the court in any kind of queries, he is made an accused and he is directed to be arrested. That to a sitting senior police officer, even when he is not a party to the proceedings, to the list. So this is something which is very, very rare, and as was rightly observed in the course of hearing by one of the honorable judges, that in his tenure as judge of 18 years, he never knew that he had these police powers or to convert the court into a police station.
And this family, living 2 hours from Chennai, find themselves encircled by policemen and desperate to get out of the case altogether.
ஆனால் எங்களுக்கு பாதுகாப்பு வராங்கன்னு போலீஸ் வந்துட்டு இருக்கிறாங்க. எங்களுக்கு எந்த இதுவும் ஃப்ரீயாக நாங்கள் எந்த வேலை செய்ய முடியல. அதுதான் உண்மை. எங்களுக்கு கடை 1000 கடை இருக்கு. அந்த காலத்தை நான் தைக்கிறேன், நாங்கள் வேலைக்கு போனால் தான் எங்களால் முடியும். இப்போ இது மாதிரி பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தா என் பையனும் வேலைக்கு போக முடியாத ஆகிடுச்சு, அவனும் வீட்டிலே தான் இருக்கான். எங்களுக்கு பாதுகாப்பும் எதுவுமே தெரியல, என்னதான் நடக்குது என்னதான் பண்ணதுன்னு தெரியல. ஜெகன்மோகன் இது எங்க கேஸுக்கு அவர் எப்படி வந்தாருன்னு எங்களுக்கு புரியல. ஐயா நாங்க எதுவுமே ஒரு பேர் நாங்க சொல்லலையா ஐயா, எங்களுக்கும் அவருக்கும் எந்த சம்மந்தமும் இல்லை தானே ஐயா, எங்களுக்கு எதுவுமே இல்லைங்களே, எந்த சம்மந்தமும் கிடையாது. அவருக்கும் எங்களுக்கும் எந்த சம்மந்தங்களும் அவங்க எங்களுக்கு மிரட்டலும் எதுவும் விடல, யாரும் எங்களுக்காண்டு வரவும் இல்லை. போலீஸ் தான் வந்துட்டு இருக்காங்க, டெய்லி வந்துட்டு இருக்காங்க. எங்க சார் இன்னைக்கு காலையில் நான் வேலைக்கு போறேன்னு பார்த்தா இதுக்கு வந்து உட்காந்துருக்காங்க. நான் வேலைக்கு போகணும்னு சொல்றேன், அப்ப கூட இன்னும் வேலை இருக்கு, இன்னும் எழுதணும், ஸ்டேட்மெண்ட் எழுதணும். என்ன ஸ்டேட்மெண்ட் எழுதுனா ஃபர்ஸ்ட்ல இருந்து நடந்ததெல்லாம் சொல்லுங்க சொல்லிடுறாங்க. ஒரு நாளைக்கு ஒரு மைண்ட் இது மாதிரி இருந்தா மைண்ட் எங்களுக்கு வந்து இதாக ஒரு மன உளைச்சலாவே இருக்கு. நாங்க என்ன பண்ண முடியும்?
Whether this top policeman was involved in a teenager's abduction has not been legally proven. But stuck in this high-profile fight is a father paying the price for his son's decision to marry the girl he loved.
ஜெகன்மூர்த்தியை நமக்கு தெரியாது. ஜெகன்மூர்த்திக்கு கனெக்ஷன் இருக்கா, உதயநிதி கனெக்ஷன் இருக்கா, எடப்பாடி கனெக்ஷன் இருக்கா, இதெல்லாம் எனக்கு தெரியாது. புரியுதா? இதெல்லாம் அவங்கள தான் சொல்கிறாங்க. யாருக்கு கனெக்ஷன் இருக்குன்னா அவங்க தான் கண்டுபிடிக்கணும். நாம் இதை பற்றி எதுவுமே கம்ப்ளைண்ட் பண்ணலை. அவங்களா ஒன்றா சொன்னால் அதுக்கு நாம் என்ன பண்ணுறது?
For the BJP, in alliance with the AIADMK, fighting the equally powerful DMK, the story of an ADGP arrested for allegedly threatening a young couple may mean very little. But for the couple and their families, it is proof that politics spares nobody, not even newlyweds in their early 20s.
And it is My Way or Highway in Kolkata, the show of political might, on the other side of this break.